With all the financial information out here, how do you even know who to listen to?
5 steps to becoming your own bank. Number 1, open an indexed universal life policy. Make sure you pick an agent that knows what they're doing. They need to structure it properly, otherwise it will not work.
Indexed universal policy is it's a newer version of an old bad idea. Here, by the way, after you paid extra on this all these years and you die, they only pay the face value. They don't pay the face value plus your savings that you've been paying extra to build.
After 1 year, you've accumulated 9,564. You add that to the face amount, it equals the net death benefit every single time. How is he sitting up here with millions of views? I don't even know how many subscribers, and talking about IULs are a scam, and he doesn't even know that.
What could you put $2,000 in if you wanted to speculate that the NASDAQ was going to recover and the overall market was going to recover in the next few months? One option could obviously be the Qs. That is the NASDAQ. That is up about 1.7% today, so you could have made 1.7%. The other thing you can do is take TQQQ. That is the Qs times 3. So.
Welcome to Finance Unfiltered. I'm Nadine.
I'm the Doc.
And we are here to really break down those financial myths, really just inform our listeners so that they make informed financial decisions.
I think it's very important, for sometimes we get so caught up with so much information, we don't know what to believe, who to listen to, right? And I think whoever you listen to when it comes to your money is so critical because you can make either the right decision or the wrong decision. So all we're here to do what? Give you insights, simplify things, and make your life easy so you can make the right decision when it comes to your money.
Absolutely. And like I said in the beginning, how do you know who to listen to? I mean, so you're, in the medical field, in science and medicine. And, I often heard, when you go to the doctors, right, and they tell you something, then you hear people say, did you get a second opinion, right? So then you could go to another doctor and they could, tell you the same thing or tell you something completely different, and we trust that our doctors are licensed and educated. But when it comes to finances, how do you know who to listen to? I mean, what do you think about those clips? Because we saw a bunch of different ideas, and what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, right? She mentioned, who do you listen to, right? There's so much information out there today, and everybody, want to share something or give advice. But the thing is, you have to be very careful in who you listen to, as I mentioned earlier, right? Between the two of us is over 20 years of experience in the financial industry, right? And I think that's why we're doing this, because when I first, at the age of 17 years old, somebody, took me, sat me down and showed me some things that I had never seen before that really changed my view on money. Because I never seen it before, right? I'm like, man, if I apply these simple concepts, what can happen, right? And I feel like over the years, I've seen so much and read so much and just have so many different experiences. And it's like, man, I can understand how it's so difficult to know who to listen to because there's so much information. Because my own parents, right, had the wrong products that for years they didn't know because they didn't have the education. Nobody really sat with them and kind of showed them, hey, this is the right thing to do and this is the wrong thing to do, right? There's so much advice. And like I said, there's no one size shoe that fit everybody. You have to get advice that is tailored to you and your needs. Don't say because my friend is doing this and getting this, I should be getting the same thing too, because your friend might be in a different financial situation than you, right? So it's very critical that whoever you sit down with to get advice from, you want to make sure that, number one, they're credible, they know what they're talking about, and they have properly gotten to know you, know what your needs are, right? So they can give you the best advice that fits you. That's what I want to add to that.
Yeah, and that's so true because there's so much. I mean, if you're anywhere on any social media platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, right? There's so many people saying so many different things. It's so easy to get confused. Some people are saying you need an ETF. Other people are saying, invest in 401ks at your job. Some people are telling you to buy this type of life insurance, and others are saying this one is a scam. And so it's like, it's crazy. So, as a licensed financial professional, we wanted to really just kind of put this together so that people have somewhere to go where they can just get information. And again, the information isn't geared to one way or the other. It's just to help you to make an informed decision. Because again, like the doc said, when you're getting investment or financial advice, it's very important to get advice that is suitable for you, right? And we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But Doc, when someone's trying to figure out whether or not they should work with a financial professional, or, whether or not the person they're talking to has any credibility in their area, is there any way to check them out?
Man, let me tell you something. What I'm about to show you guys, I wish everybody had access to this, right? And I think a lot of times we don't, because if you're not in the industry, you will not know where to go check, or somebody don't show you, you will not go to go check, right? Most of us, when we find information, where do we go? We go to Google, right? Some information on Google are credible, right? But a lot of information on Google is not. You want to make sure when you're making a decision, yes, you can go there and get some information, but when you have to make a decision concerning your money, you want to go to credible sources. And what I love is, right, there's a website called Broker Check. And Broker Check, all you gotta do is you go on your Google website, right, and simply you type in Broker Check, right, by FINRA. And FINRA is a financial industry regulatory authority. The financial industry is the most regulated industry in the United States. You go on there, type in Broker Check, right, FINRA, and it will come up, and you will see a screen that says, right, Broker Check FINRA. And then simply you go on here and you click on Broker Check. It's going to bring you to this screen. When you get to this screen here, whoever the person is that you're taking advice from, or who you're considering taking advice from, you can find out what license they have, right? You can put the individual name here. You can put their firm name here and what state they're operating, if you know it. And if you don't know it, guess what? It's fine. Just put their name, right? And it tells you right here, Broker Check is a free tool created, right, by FINRA to research the background and experience of financial advisors and firms. And to me, this is such a powerful tool because it gives you all that you need to know about the person that you need to work with, the experience, where they work, how long they've been there, their disclosures, so many different things.
It's so interesting because, we're not in any way trying to discredit your mama or your neighbor that's a business owner, because I was always taught that you take advice from people who have the fruits of whatever it is that you want. So of course there are people who can provide advice to you that are not necessarily licensed. Okay, so I'm not trying to take away any credibility from anyone else, but I will say that everyone's opinion is not weighted the same, right? Because if you want a great marriage, are you going to take marriage advice from someone that's been divorced 5 times? Or if you want to raise, a certain type of child, are you going to take advice from someone who maybe doesn't have the type of children that you wish to rear, right? So it's important to know who to get advice from. Broker Check is going to check whether or not a person is licensed in the area of investments, right? So that's the thing about it. It's all about investing, and if a person's licensed in that area. You're going to click on Broker Check, and when you do so, what you're going to find is that after you input the person's information, it's going to tell you which company they currently are going to be working or clearing through. Okay. And it's going to tell you where it's located. Then it'll tell you if they have any disclosures. Disclosures are things that in the finance industry you have to tell about yourself. Or if a client has had any sort of concerns or complaints against you, it'll show up under disclosures. It'll also show the years of experience, which is how long they've been licensed, right, and then how many firms they've had during that time. And then what states they're licensed in and so forth, right? So let's start with disclosures, because disclosures is a place where you can really check credibility, right? If you were going, and we like to do this. I mean, let's be real. Let's be honest. Anybody shop on Amazon?
Yep.
Yeah, we shop on Amazon, right? And when you shop on Amazon, before you make a purchase, how many people check out the reviews?
I do, for sure.
We gonna review that thing down. I'm watching the images. I'm looking at the videos, right? And this is just to buy some curtains, but you want to make sure that you're buying a quality curtain. Well, this is a way for you to actually kind of, make sure that you're checking out the person or firm that you're going to be dealing with before you actually make that move. Or even if you already have a person, you can already go in and, you know, check them out. So that is what comes up. And disclosures are going to be anything that they have to disclose. Now, working in the finance industry is not like if you just, you know, maybe work for the city or you work for the state. No one knows your personal information.
That's right.
Well, when you work for finance, you know, Doc, it's kind of like, you know, like you got paparazzi following you around, you know, because they gonna find out everything. Which isn't that true?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing is, look, I love it because it shows that before you come into the industry, you gotta have a pretty good background because they check that, right? Because you're dealing with people's hard-earned money, so they want to make sure that your background is as clean as possible, right? Because people are doing all kinds of things with people's money, so they want to make sure that, hey, whoever you're going to work with, you got to make sure that you do your due diligence.
The thing is, the investment professionals also have to disclose their personal financial details.
That's
so
right.
Where if you file bankruptcy, nobody knows about it unless they do a public search on you, right?
Right.
In the finance industry, any personal finance challenges that you've had also have to be disclosed.
Yeah.
So in this case, you'll notice that someone had declared bankruptcy back, you know, and I don't know if it says the time. I think it was back in like 2021.
Yeah.
But it's been discharged. They have to let someone know that. And not that it would have any impact on the way that they would handle your account professionally. Right. But again, financial information has to be disclosed. You know, judgments or liens. If they've been sued by a creditor or had a judgment or lien against them, they also have to disclose that information. You know, and, you know, sometimes we make compromises with creditors, right? I know I have in the past, right? Where if someone, you owe them $3,000 and you like, listen, I want to pay this off. Can I give you 1,000? You know, we like to bargain. Can I give you 1,000 instead of the 3,000? Right? As a financial professional, you have to disclose that you actually compromise with a creditor to get your balance paid lower than what it is. So having a disclosure doesn't necessarily invalidate the person from giving you financial advice.
That's right.
I mean, it's just good to know. It's information for you. Maybe it's a conversation that you want to have with them just to see if they've cleared it up. But again, do you like making decisions with as little information as possible?
That's right.
Or you like to make informed decisions with as much information as possible?
I want to make informed decisions, absolutely, with everything that I do, right? Like I said, you know, none of us are perfect, right? We are all flawed in our own ways. And in many ways, I'm flawed, you flawed, right? But at the end of the day, you want to have an idea who this person is. A credible person, right? Even when they make a mistake, they can admit to that. None of us are perfect, but that's what I love about this industry. Everything comes out, right? Like I said, if I file for bankruptcy, it doesn't mean I'm a dumb person or I don't know what I'm doing. Life happens to all of us, right? We make mistakes, right? We do certain things we think is right, but it don't go the way that we thought it was going to go, and things happen. So to me, by divulging that, and sometimes you learn from that, right? And when you learn from that, you can teach somebody else how not to get into bankruptcy, right? But now if you have like 2-3 bankruptcy situations, like now you continue to repeat mistakes. Now that's a problem.
Absolutely. Right? And, you know, that's actually what got me involved in the industry in the first place. You know, I'm an educator by trade and by license, and I was a school teacher, and I didn't learn anything about money. I didn't grow up in a family that talked about money and how to manage money. And, you know, I went to school, I got a bachelor's and a master's in education, and school didn't teach me anything about money. And so oftentimes you can go through your career, like go through school, go through upbringing, and depending on your household or culture, you can, you know, get into your career and still not know anything about money. That's where I was. And, you know, that's actually what drew me into finance. I wanted to learn. I really didn't understand. And I knew that if I did not learn, that I was going to continue to make financial mistakes. And, you know, I really didn't want to make those mistakes. So, you know, like you said, Doc, we all have those things. We all, you know, have made mistakes and still make them. You know, as a financial professional, you ever made still, even though you're licensed and you know what you're supposed to be doing, you ever still made any silly, crazy mistakes?
I can't tell you how many bonehead mistakes that I've made. Even as a licensed professional and having all this insight and all this knowledge, but I'm human. I'm human, right? And that's what we learn as we go. And that's why I think it's a valuable thing, because why? My mistake that I made, I can share with my clients to not make the same mistakes. That's why I don't like people that try to be perfect. We're all imperfect people. We make mistakes, but the key is not to make the same mistakes over and over and over. Hey, I made that mistake doing this. Guess what? And it bit me in the butt. Guess what? I'm not going to do that again. So guess what? When I sit with a client, I don't have no problem sharing that because they might be going through it. They might feel nervous about sharing it with me. So when I share my story, it breaks the ice. And man, this guy's human. Absolutely. Right? Because I didn't start when I was 17 years old. I was bagging groceries at a food line. you see what I'm saying? But somebody found me and showed me, and man, my eyes opened wide. I'm like, oh my goodness. How come I've never learned about this? When I'm in school, I'm learning algebra, trigonometry, you name it. Pythagorean theorem. It all sounds good, but I don't use these things. Other people may use them. I'm not downing it, right? But what I'm saying is that I use money every day. Shouldn't we learn about this stuff in school? How to use money, how to apply, money concepts? That's all we're saying is, hey, schools should teach. There should be a curriculum that schools help people to be able to learn how to address their money so that when they come out of school, they can function in society and have the basics to be able to do well when it comes to their money, right? And that's why I got involved, right? I wanted to be able to learn about money. And when I saw what I saw, I'm like, oh my goodness, my family, my friends, those around me can learn and benefit and do well financially. Why not teach that? Why not learn more about it so I could beat upon a...
And that's why I got involved also, just so that I could get the education and be able to share it and still make the type of impact that teachers want to make on the community. It's all about giving back, right? It's all about paying it forward. And that's actually what our podcast is all about. It's really giving information, breaking down financial myths and things that really hold people back financially. And it's crazy. We're sitting here talking about broker check. I met a lady through networking who runs like a kid program up in Connecticut. And we were just, on a Zoom chatting, trying to figure out how we could support each other in business. And she shared with me something that was so alarming that, it kind of became a part of the basis for why we're sharing this information, right? She was like, she found out I was in finance and she was just like, yeah, kind of like, I don't trust financial professionals. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a reason why you're saying that. What happened? And she's just like, man, we were working with a trusted person, like a family friend, and they basically convinced us, based on everything they shared with us, it made a lot of sense for us to liquidate our retirement assets, our 401ks and stuff, and actually roll them over into this product that we thought was guaranteed to really set us up for retirement. Wow. And here we are 7 years later. And not only do we not have the projections that they shared, but we lost 75% of the money that we put in to this particular investment. And at the time, she was in the process of filing complaints with, the state and Better Business Bureau and all of these places against the firm for the advice that she received. So it's so important to have resources, because I shared broker check with her, how she could have gone on and kind of vetted the professional before, making that sort of decision. And so, we want to make sure we share with our listeners because, I once read a quote that you have to learn from the mistakes of others.
Right.
Because you won't live long enough to make all the mistakes yourself. So we're just trying to share with you different things that we've encountered, our experiences of our clients, so that you can avoid some of the financial mistakes and challenges that we have.
Shana, what you just shared right now is devastating, right? And the funny thing is, it's not uncommon. It actually happens a lot. Almost every other week, you hear a story of somebody taking the entire money they have to throw it into a particular investment. They don't even understand it, right? Warren Buffett said, how can you invest or never invest in anything that you don't understand? It doesn't make, even for me, I'm not telling you listen to me or take my advice. I'm not your financial advisor. I can't give you Like, I don't know your story. I don't know anything about you. All I'm saying is this: we hear stories every day of people, getting advice and taking that advice based on, oh, I know this person. Or listen, it's your hard-earned money. Make sure before you deploy the money into any investment that you have some level of understanding of how the strategy works. It's not about financial products. It's about strategy and how that strategy fits you. The products only exist to serve the overall strategy. So the question you must ask yourself is, what I'm getting into, is it a strategy that fits me, or is it just a product?
The thing about people is that people lie.
Yeah.
The thing about numbers is that numbers don't lie.
Absolutely.
So you always want to pay attention to your paperwork. You want to pay attention to the numbers and make sure that you're looking at those things, because anyone can tell you anything.
That's right.
But that black and white print, black and white print does not lie. Okay? It does not lie. So we talked about personal disclosures, having judgments, having bankruptcy. And, those may be cause for alarm, maybe not for you. Maybe you understand, it's definitely your decision. But I would say you want to pay attention to anything that involves a customer. That's right? Because customer disputes are completely different than personal financial disclosures, right? If you make a compromise with creditors or you filed bankruptcy 10 years ago, whatever. But customer disputes means that a customer has filed a written complaint with not just the firm, but the regulatory authority that actually governs the firm in regards to what it is that they were told. And so in this case, the client alleged that the real estate investment trust she purchased was misrepresented. And guess what? She requested $15,000. Now, in this case, it said it was denied. But does that mean in the client's eyes it wasn't? Maybe there was something they didn't feel was presented correctly to them. Right. Then another disclosure on this particular, representative says that she didn't authorize it, or didn't authorize that variable annuity, and was requesting $7,500. Right. So if a financial professional that you're looking to deal with has these types of disclosures, what do you want to know about it? When you want to know if they've had customer complaints that have said they've misrepresented information, or that they have fines that they're in the midst of paying because of misrepresentation, right? So these are all things that you can tell in Broker Check. And the last thing we want to talk to you about in Broker Check is that it'll tell you the years of experience that an investment advisor or representative has, as well as how many firms they've been with. Now, you can use that for what it may. If in 10 years or 8 years, someone's had 4 different firms, maybe you're okay with them continuously switching firms. Maybe that makes you uneasy. Maybe you like to see someone that has a little bit more stability with the firm.
Changing firms, to me, is not an issue. But when it becomes repetitive, it kind of sounds like off a red flag to me. Now, maybe somebody might have a military spouse and they kind of having to move to different states, but still, a lot of times your firm might have base in those particular states. So if you're switching firms constantly, is it because you're getting in trouble? Is it because there may be any reason? Like I said, the purpose is not to bash anybody. It's to give you, the viewers, or people, something to think about or consider. We know that even in the regular society, people switch jobs every few years, right? They want to improve, they want to upgrade, they want to get a higher pay. I understand that. But a financial professional, right, before you join any firm, first of all, you have to vet the firm before you join the firm, right? So if you join the firm and now you find something about the firm that displeases you, okay, you can switch. But when it becomes repetitive, you're doing it every 2 years, it's a problem. It can be something with you, right? So like I said, it's just for you, the viewers, to check and consider. That's all we're here to do, is give you resources that you can use to be able to make an informed decision.
Because again, we're not saying that people aren't human. We're not saying that people don't make mistakes or have, errors in judgment. But like the doc said, when it becomes repetitive, it's like, maybe it's something worth checking into. That's all we're saying, right? Or having
we are creatures of habit. You see what I'm saying? Like, if if you keep making the same mistakes over and over and over, it's not like you know, and you purposely doing it, right? So like I said, at the end of the day, man, we all have to make decisions. And the choices we make in life impacts us in so many ways, especially when it comes to your money. You work hard for that money. Make sure before you deploy the money that you have done your due diligence on whoever you're choosing to work with.
It's crazy because most of the time we don't have any information, right?
Yeah.
We don't really know. I know I didn't, I thought when I got involved in the finance industry, one of the reasons I did is because I was buying a house, and one of my cousins shared with me that I could pull money from my 401k, in order to purchase my first home. So I told you I was a teacher. I made an appointment to go and talk to them so that I could take money out for my first home. And when I got there, the representative said, "You don't have a 401k." And I was like, "Well, what do I have?" And she was like, "You have a pension." Oh, well, what's that? What's that?
That's a big
needless to say, it's completely different, and I couldn't take any money out. Okay.
Yeah, correct,
So,
correct.
Many of us are operating on a very low level of financial literacy. And so as a result, wouldn't it make sense to make sure or help ensure that the person or company you're speaking to actually has that knowledge and licenses in order to give you the best advice and help you make the most informed decision, right?
Yeah.
So that's about investment professionals. Broker Check is all about helping to ensure that any investment professional that you're going to be working with is actually giving you, licensed and, all of that in that particular area. And this is so important, right? Because there's a lot of gray areas when it comes to investments and people giving advice and, and stuff like that.
It's almost like you go to a general doctor, right? Describe what's going on with you. They will give you, they have an idea of what might be going on, right? But if it's really your foot that's having the issue, or you need surgery, the general doctor cannot do that, right? They have to refer you to a specialist. So if you're talking to somebody and what you really want is an investment product, or what you really want is to invest, should you not talk to somebody that's licensed to give investment advice?
Makes the most sense to me.
Because that's what they specialize in, right? This is the same concept, right? Don't go to somebody for investment advice that's not specialized in investment. That's all I'm saying. And it happens to people all the time. They go to get investment advice, but they come out getting a different advice that's completely opposite to what they're looking for, right? That's what they come out having all these complaints, because it's what? Later on, when they realize, like, man, I didn't go for this, but I got that, right? That's the whole point. If you want investment advice, you go to an investment advisor. If you want insurance advice, you go to somebody that specializes in insurance.
Absolutely.
It's a separate thing, right?
They are separate. They are two completely separate things.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting because in any other area, this would not be a challenge. If we want advice about our car, we're not going to go to the bike shop. If we want advice, you know what I mean? If we want to know, how to eat well and, and have a better diet, most people hire a dietitian or someone who can help them manage that. You're not necessarily going to go to the manager of McDonald's and ask them that question, right? But in the finance industry, it's like, it's one of the only areas where it can be gray sometimes, where people may say that they do certain things, but it turns out that they're actually not licensed. So we're going to move from investments license areas to insurance license areas, because you can also help to ensure that a person or representative that you're going to be doing business with is also insurance licensed.
Absolutely, right. And I think that's very important, right? And no matter what state you are located in, right, you can absolutely find out if that person you're talking to is actually licensed in that state, right? So you could be, let's say you're in DC, right, but the person you're talking to is giving you advice and want to help you, but that person's licensed in, let's just say, New York. It doesn't make any sense, right? But you can actually, there's a site you can go to in each state, right, to figure out, hey, is this person actually licensed here, and what is their background or history when it comes to giving advice on insurance? Do they have a history? Do they have issues going on, right? Are they credible, right? Are they still in the industry? How long have they been in the industry? 2 years, 1 year? Would you agree somebody coming in the industry 1 year might not have as much experience or knowledge as somebody who's been in the industry for 15, 20 years?
Absolutely.
Right? It doesn't mean that the person's been in it for 1 year cannot give you good advice, but they may not know enough or have enough insight to give you advice that may be specific to you, right? So if you want to go, and search for somebody that might be in the industry. So for example, let's say this is a random example. Let's just say you in Georgia, right? And you meet somebody that you might have a need for insurance for you and your family. And it's, oh yeah, I can help you out, right? You don't know this, you know the person, but you don't really know the person's experience when it comes to that advice they're going to give you, right? You can go to Georgia Insurance Administration, right? When you come on here, you could click it, right? You could click the Office of Commissioner, right? You go all the way down here, right? It says here, license lookup, right? Or you can, go and find out agent lookup, right? You can find out the person and what their background is, right? You can make a complaint about a person you might have experience with in the past that didn't give you the right advice or kind of hurt you in a way, right? So don't feel like you lost, right? The purpose of what we're doing here is to give you tools that you can use to be able to gather enough information to make an informed decision. That's what all this is about, right? It's to help you to make an informed decision, no matter who you're going to deal with.
Sometimes you want to make sure the company is credible too, right? And in any business, any industry, it doesn't matter if you're a Christian, you'll Google something and it'll say, is Jesus Christ real? You'll Google it and you'll have thousands of people that say no, he's not, right? And then you'll have thousands of people that say the stars are the gods, and you'll have thousands of people, so any topic is controversial in Google.
Yes,
absolutely. Right? It doesn't matter what it is, right? And so the thing about Google is that anybody can write anything. It's like the bathroom wall of back in the day when people used to write stuff on the bathroom wall stall, right? Anybody can write anything. So Google isn't always necessarily the most credible source, but you can find if companies are currently in lawsuits and litigations around, different things. And so, the second thing where we want to tell you, so the first key to vetting a financial professional is that you want to check them out, and you can use broker check or producer search on your state, depending on who it is. The second key is that you want to check out the company. Okay. You want to check out the company, and, you can do a Google search and stuff, but, there are lawsuits. I used to be a teacher, as I shared, and I had a colleague who asked me as a favor, can I go talk to his grandma? Now his grandma, older lady, sweet lady, and I sit down with her and she has all of these insurance policies for all her grandkids. Old grandmas back in the day, they did not play. If somebody birthed a baby, they was calling the insurance man the next day. Okay. They was not playing. So they got this. So she has all of these policies. She's concerned because, one, she's on a fixed income. She's older. She's retired. Two, the company that she originally purchased the policies with has switched hands like 8 or 10 times. She said, I don't even know what the name of the company is anymore. They've been bought and sold so many times. And now at her older age, I'm recommending to her, listen, grandma, Susie is 30. Susie needs to pay for her own insurance policy. And, little Quay, Quay, he's 25. He got 2 kids of his own. Quay need to be taking over his own insurance policy. And with the money that you'll be saving, you can use it. You're on a fixed income. You want to fix up your house. You have things you want to do.
That's right.
But when we went to go to contact the insurance company, unfortunately, at that time, the insurance company was in a state of insolvency, which basically means that they didn't have money. Now, the great thing about insurance is that, state always has protections in place so that if consumers have money that they aren't just out of their money. But we couldn't do anything with those policies at that time because it was going through that process. So is it important to vet the companies?
Yeah,
absolutely. So, Doc, where are some places you can go to kind of vet companies?
One place I like is Better Business Bureau. You can go in there, BBB, right? Better Business Bureau, and search up any company or any firm to get information about the firm, how long the firm has been around, Are they under any litigation? I mean, you can get great information about any firm that you're planning to deal with. See, like I said, Google could give you something, but this is an actual agency designed and built to give you clear information based on deep and thorough research. Google is not thorough research, right? As the Dean mentioned earlier, you can go and just throw whatever you want on there, right? But this can give you thorough and decisive information. You go to AM Best. AM Best is a great company agency that rates investment firms and insurance companies, right? AM Best can give you great information, right? Have the company won awards, right? What are their rankings? What are some of the products they offer? What are clients' view on these things? This is a great site. I use it all the time to find information on particular firms. You have Forbes. Forbes is amazing. People don't think about it, but Forbes also do ratings on financial companies, right? And they rank them from 1 to 100, right? And obviously, if you want to work with a company to invest a lot of money, would you rather want to get that information from Google or get information from Forbes? Because think about it, on Google, I'm giving you my experience and my opinion and my feelings on a particular person. You have all these financial firms, right? Thousands of them. And they have thousands of agents. Just because one bonehead agent made a bad, or a few of them made bad decisions, does that mean that the firm is terrible or bad? No. It's because of the particular people that are doing the education or the service. So, right, like I said, that gives you clear information, right? Another thing is the New York Stock Exchange. If I'm going to deal with a company, trust and believe I want to deal with a very credible company. If that company is on a New York Stock Exchange, do you think that a lot of research and thorough research were done on that company before they were listed on that? The S&P, right, is the top 500 companies in the United States. There are over how many? There are over 2 million businesses on the, that are available, right? If only 500 can make it on S&P, do you think they make it on it just to make it on it, or were they thoroughly researched?
Oh no, it was some stringent requirements for sure.
If you're trying to get information, don't just go on Google, because you might not get the whole story. You might get a snippet. But if you can go on these other resources that are credible, and that a lot of money is invested to do their due diligence, you are going to get the whole picture to make an informed decision.
You can also do Fortune. Fortune's another one that, that does check, the credibility of companies. And, if you make the Fortune 1000, that's also the top 1,000 companies listed by Fortune. So, there are ways to kind of check the credibility of a company. So, I would just say use your resources. Your state websites can tell you a lot of stuff as well. They'll even put up disclaimers about different financial products and services on state websites sometimes. So, definitely feel free to use the resources that your state has available. Yeah. So, it's interesting. We've told you a few things. So, we share with you, if you're going to be doing business in finance and, you don't know who to listen to, right?
That's right.
There's a few things you can do to do it. You can check out Broker Check. You can do the producer search, right? Mm-hmm. You want to check out the financial company. But the third thing we're going to share with you, what we almost feel like might be one of the most important, because it's all about you, is did they do a needs analysis? How would you feel, if you went to the doctor and you walked up in there, man, you don't know if you pulled something, we're getting a little older, back hurting a little bit, and you sit down, the doctor walks in with 5 prescriptions and hands them to you. And you're like, what these for?
What these for?
Oh, for your ailments. What ailments? You said, your head hurting. I'm pretty sure at 55, you got knee trouble.
That's right.
And I know that if you're looking like, that's not why I came here.
Yeah.
My back hurt, right? Yeah. But in the finance industry, how can someone effectively put together a strategy or a plan for you without figuring out what your needs are?
One of my trainings, coming up, in the science and medical industry, right? I specialized in, liver pathology, right? And liver pathology, you can get liver cancer from many different, sources, right? If you go and try to get help, right? Not every medication, like you're not going to take a medicine that treats bone cancer and try to apply it to get this money to take, that has liver cancer, right? So people or experts or advisors have to have fiduciary responsibility. And not every advisor is a fiduciary. As a fiduciary, that means every advice I give to a client, it has to be in the best interest of that client. Now, question. If I don't know my client and I already have a preconceived notion of what I want to give the client, is that really for the best interest for the client or for myself? So I have to sit down with a client, get to figure out what is their age, what is the time horizon, what are they willing to do? Do they have any kids? How much income do they make? How much tax responsibility do they have, right? How much can they invest? When do they want to retire? What is their current age? Like, there's so many different factors. Do they want to, do they have a lot of debt? What debt do they have? Do they have a plan to pay off their debts? Do they have children? How old are their children? Do they want their kids to go to college? Do they have any, income replacement strategies? There's so many different things. Do they have an emergency account? So without knowing these things, how far are they away from retirement? Are they going to retire next year, 2 years, 10 years? That's going to dictate what investment you can put their money in. If somebody comes to you and say, hey, you know what? I plan to touch this money in the next year. As an advisor, you can go put your money in an aggressive portfolio, right? You have to know what the client needs are. That's why we do something called needs analysis. Every advisor should do that to figure out what your client needs are. Because once you know what the needs are, your job is now easy to know what strategies can fulfill those needs.
There's no one size fit all investment for everyone. And just because something is one person's, way doesn't mean it's another person's, right? And another thing that, often it gets overlooked sometimes is that you also have to determine a person's attitude towards risk.
That's right.
Are they like a risk averse person? It's crazy because my husband and I, we have two completely different attitudes towards risk when it comes to different things. Like our kids, my husband's like, let them play. I'm the worry ward that's going to be like, well, wait, is he going to hit his head? Is he going to fall? Let me follow behind him in my car. I'm that person, right? Two completely different attitudes towards risk. When it comes to money, if my husband has a $20 bill and he can't find it, he'll be like, I don't know what I did with that 20. It'll come up. Me, I can't find my 20. I'm out at the car. I'm looking in between the seat cushions. I'm, shaking out my pants pockets. I'm trying to figure out what in the world happened to my $20, right? So just because something works for one person doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work for the next person. So it's important when you're getting advice and you're trying to figure out who to listen to. The question to ask yourself was, did they ask me about me? Did they ask me about me and my job and what I do and how much money I have saved and my emergency fund? And did they look at my expenses, my in and outs? And did they look at these things? Because that's going to show you whether they're really concerned about doing it for you or if they're just trying to push a product that makes them a lot of money.
Finance is already very complex because there's so many different components. You want somebody that will break it down and simplify it and bring it to a level where you can understand, right? Because a lot of times an advisor might try to create like a knowledge gap, right? Which will kind of make you feel like, oh my, this guy knows so much, right? But sometimes you just want simple. Me, I like simple. Because simple allows me to have clarity so I can make a decision. What the dean was referring to is what we call a risk profile. To identify, am I an aggressive investor? To me, everything, I look at life as, I have one life to live, right? I want to make sure that I maximize my life to the fullest. So I'm not risk averse. Now, I'm not crazy. I like control risk. I'm not conservative, but I like controlled risk. Somebody else might be very conservative. And sometimes it depends on where they are in their investment journey, right? See, there are three spaces or there are three steps when you're investing money, right? You could be in the accumulation phase, meaning that, hey, this is my fruitful years. I'm working. I'm young. I can take chances. I could build, right? When you get to a certain age, you now get into the what? Capital preservation stage, meaning that, hey, the money I've accumulated, I'm not too far away from retirement. I want to make sure I can protect as much of this as possible. At that stage of life, there's a different investment strategy
Yeah.
that you need to protect you from what you have, right? And then when you get to a certain age, when you're now retired and need income, asset distribution phase. So you need a different strategy for that phase, right? So your investment profile might be different maybe in your 18, 20, 25 compared to when you get to your 60s and 70s, right? So risk profile is extremely important. So, and I think once again, I keep stressing the point, as an advisor, you have to put the client's interest first. You have one chance to do the right thing for people. Do the right thing. Get to know your client and give them the right advice that suits them.
That's what it's all about. I mean, here on the Finance Unfiltered podcast, it's all about breaking down these financial myths. It's no fluff. It's definitely no filter because we're going to tell you what we think, right? And so we want you to tune in. So subscribe, hit that notification bell, share with somebody. We're a new channel. And again, we're here all just to give you information. You can follow us on Instagram, on Facebook. And also, we're going to be sharing our site where you can connect with us. And if you connect with us today, connect with us after this episode, you're actually going to get a keys to vetting a financial professional checklist. So you don't have to try to remember everything that we shared today. You'll actually get a checklist where you can actually go through and you can check the information off if it's going to help you when it comes to vetting a financial professional. We have enjoyed sharing with you. We're going to be airing an episode every Friday at noon. So you definitely want to hit that notification bell so you know when a new episode is airing. Again, I'm the Dean.
I'm the Doc. And before we go, one last thing.
Absolutely.
I want to be very clear in my communication. The Dean and the Doc are not giving you financial advice. We are financial advisors. We are not your financial advisor, right? So before you make any decision, make sure you consult with a licensed and proven and credible professional. All we're here to do is simply give you information and give you tools. The way I operate may not fit you. The way the Dean operate may not fit you. But if we do fit your style and our communication style, feel free to reach out and we can have an individual conversation. At that point, we can give you our thoughts and opinions and what we believe can help you to achieve your financial goals, right? So with that, that's all I got for you.
Absolutely. And so we'll definitely see you next time. Remember, anytime you invest, it involves risk, right? So investments involve risk, and we are not in any way suggesting that you invest in anything. All we want you to do is make informed decisions. So we'll see you on next Friday. Until then, be informed and stay safe.
All right.